to Maxed Out Man, helping you become the man you were made to be.
Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Maxed Out Man podcast. Today I'm going to be here with Zachary Armstrong, also known as Zach to me. Zach is doing some training for me, and so I wanted to bring him on, talk about fitness, health, training, my program. We're going to do a 12-week thing here, so I wanted to go through that. Before we get started, don't forget to go to maxedoutman.com, check out some of the challenges we've got going on, courses, communities, everything we have to offer. Also, if you like this podcast, go ahead and rate and review. That really helps us out to get more people listening and get this information out there. So I'm going to give Zach's quick and extensive bio in this couple of paragraphs, which he sent this to me yesterday. I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. Zach's originally from Opelika, Alabama. Depending on where you're from, you know how to pronounce these things. He grew up working out and loving sports, but it's also kind of on the smaller side. So he decided to go into the gym and get bigger, which has just continued throughout his life. He joined the Marine Corps in '99 and got his undergraduate degree while serving. After the USMC, he worked a couple of years before going to grad school to get his MBA at Alabama. Fitness and training has always been a part of his life. After graduate school, he went back into the military as a naval officer and F-18 pilot, then transitioned over to logistics. Zach's about to retire from the Navy and has transitioned into full-time training now, which I think is a super cool career path, right? Like that's something that you don't often see, and I think it's awesome to be able to see someone kind of transition throughout their life and use, I assume that's GI Bill, in order to go through those education things, or working while you were doing that, which is also impressive. So, hey, fill in as much information as you want. Thanks for coming on board. That's kind of your basic story, but if you want to fill in information on kind of how you got here, what you're transitioning into this personal training thing is, and how that's going to look moving forward.
Yeah, so the transition standpoint wasn't done on purpose. That was a pretty good snapshot of like how I've come along. Definitely working out was, I was just a smaller frame. I was the youngest person in my grade. I kind of started early school. So I graduated at 17. So because of that, especially in the younger group, when I was younger, I was always smaller, right? And so that thing of wanting to get bigger, stronger became part of the life. And what happened was I just started, my garage is my gym, right? And, I can show it here for anybody who's watching. And from there, like a neighbor asked me if I would train them. And initially I put it off. And then I gave in, and then she said, hey, there's some other people interested. And I said, okay. And I started training them. And then one of them was like, hey, I have another friend, but they don't live here. Do you think you could train them online? I was like, I don't know. Maybe, let me try. And so then I tried. And, I've been training people my whole life. Like, even growing up, once I started figuring out how to work out, it'd been part of my life in college and Marine Corps, and then in the Navy, it's been part of my life training people, but, never like as a job. And then when I started the online thing, a couple other friends started to ask too, from posting things, right? And so, and once that happened, I found that I liked it more than I thought. And the reason is probably not what people would think the reason is because I got to help people. And it was strange. Like, it's great if I get somebody who's in shape, who just wants, who's in, who's like 5 pounds away from a six pack, right? Those are great. Those are fun. Those are usually easier to work with. But, when I get somebody who's like pre-diabetic, 48 years old, 270, 80 pounds, and then they start working out, and then 6 weeks later, now they're 248 pounds, and they're waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and mentally they've changed in the way their life's being, the directory of it has changed, and to have that influence and effect on somebody, I can't tell you for me how rewarding that is. And that rewarding nature of doing this has like tenfold been more important to me than anything or any other aspect of it. And I genuinely really love it.
Well, and I could tell that, just as a side note, or not really as a side note, that's one of the purposes of this episode. We're going to do 2 episodes. Zach and I are working together. And by working together, I mean, he's programming me and I'm doing workouts, nutrition. He's been encouraging me. And so what I'm going to do over the next 12 weeks is work my ass off, follow everything he's doing. And I'm trying to drop what I think we figured about almost 20 pounds, 17 pounds of fat. Probably. I went through kind of a bulking season, as I called it, which means I ate a bunch of crap I wasn't supposed to. And effectively that was it. You can't outwork your food. Right. And that was a good example of mine. And what I've discovered over the last couple of weeks that we've been doing this is, dude, I was a lazy piece of crap when it came to the gym. And like your workouts have been kicking my ass, which I think has been amazing and fantastic. And I feel better than I have in the last year in the gym, and worse, depending on how you look at it and what time of the workout it is. But I will say that it's evident to me that care and understanding and like genuine desire to help someone meet their goals. And it's something that I see that you're doing that I don't see out there. A lot of people do the cookie cutter programs and all that. And I want, first of all, I want to talk about like, as we've transitioned more since COVID into the telehealth and all that kind of stuff, we have greater tools to be able to do this. But how does that differentiate between you working with someone online versus like I talked about when I was training 25 years ago, it was 13 clients a day. I saw them 3 times a week, but that was it, right? Like they just came in and I encouraged them to get more reps and all that, but that was it. Like it wasn't the level of training that you're doing. But how's that look between being in a gym, walking people through it, and then doing it online?
So, it's hard for somebody to believe until they actually do it. But I see better results with the people I train online. I do a few people in person, and it's not even close. It's not even close to the results I see online via in person. Because in person, like you said, I see them for that hour that they're here, and I'm not downplaying anybody personal training in person because some people like that touch point, that connection. But I'm just being honest when I say this. You're basically paying for a glorified spotter, right? Somebody to sit there and spot you and point out what to work out, what not to, right? And, there is some truth behind learning form or somebody checking your form and stuff. But once you get past those basics, really you're just having somebody there as a spotter to a certain extent.
Yeah, very expensive spotter, right?
Very expensive, right? And I live in San Diego, and training here. 1 hour training, ranges anywhere from, low end $65, $80-ish to high end $150, $200 an hour. That's pretty significant, right? When you talk about it. And then that's usually all you get is that. And then where I do on the online approach is not only do I give you a training program, like there's a video attached with each workout. And so you're able to see the correct form. You're able to see what you're supposed to do. And then you're able to log it, and I'm able to watch it and see what you're doing. And then on top of it, I'm a certified nutritionist too. And from there, I'm able to create a meal plan, and that meal plan is extensive. It's a database of over 1,000 meals that you can reach into. And so now you're inputting your food, you're inputting your workouts, and then daily habits you form. And then again, you brushed on it, but where I've noticed I differentiate from a lot of other people, and I've kind of figured this out pretty quickly, is I have a lot of touch points with every person every day. And what I mean by that is, I usually talk to anybody, most people 6 to 20 times a day. And that is like from what they ate that day to what their workout was, or, I send a daily affirmation, or I send a video every day, once a week, a motivational video. And what I've found is that there's something you gain, not just from inputting the food. You start learning the input. It was without fail. Everybody learns like, oh man, this is what I was supposed to be doing with food. Like I thought I was eating healthy. You would always use the example, hey, I thought I was eating avocados that are healthy. Yeah, they are healthy. But if I eat 2 of them, there's 800 calories, right? Because there's so much fat. And it's not to downplay that, that's good fat, but that's calorically dense, right? And so you start learning those things. But what it also does is when I'm doing online, the people, there's still that little self motivation into it, right? And so it's not just me going, hey, go do this, or like, oh, that dude's there at 8 o'clock in the morning, so I got to be there. At some point, you start doing it yourself. And what's beautiful, and I touched on it earlier about people changing their lives, they start changing their lifestyle. And once you start changing your lifestyle, you become a different person. And when you become that different person, you feel better mentally. And I think when I was talking about me earlier, like when I genuinely like really love this because I make people, difference in people's lives. Like, I think a lot of people go in with the mindset, and I know this because, I've talked to enough people on the phone that when they talk about physical things, but without fail, almost everybody accidentally talks about wanting to feel better. Mm-hmm. When they're talking about their physical aspects, like, hey, I want a six pack, or I want to look like this. But then they'll say like, yeah, I just want to feel better. But when they say that, they're not talking about physically feel better. They are a little bit, right? They are. But what they really mean is, I want to feel good about myself again. I don't feel good about myself. I'm lacking confidence. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, right? It doesn't. We all have insecurities about the way we look. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter if you're physically fit, you could have a six pack. And I bet you that person who does is still going, oh man, like I'm pinching fat here, this, like I still have things I can work on. We all have those insecurities. But the confidence you get when you do like the online version is that self-motivation that you still have to go yourself, right? You know that there's that watchful eye, but then you start learning stuff and you start doing it and you start changing the lifestyle. When you start changing it, you slowly really don't realize it, but you will start feeling better about yourself and more confident in who you are. And, we all feel this way at some point. Sometimes we don't always like ourselves. And when we get better physically and mentally, we start liking ourselves more. And that's stuff that the money can't buy, right? Because you can't buy your way into that. You can't, right? Like there's certain things in life you can't buy. You can be the richest person in the world and you won't be happy with yourself or how you feel. And, that's when I say I can help give people something they can't buy. That's a true statement.
Yeah. It's really interesting because that's actually something that I would have, now that you say it, is super obvious, but I never would have understood. I never really thought about when you're doing things online, then you have a certain culpability and a certain responsibility as the person doing it that is rewarding in and of itself, knowing that you did it. I posted on Friday, it was like 6:20. I posted a video saying, this is why you need accountabilities. Cause like it was the end of the week. I was freaking tired. I didn't want to do my workout, but I went down and did my workout because I knew I need to log this for Zach. But in reality, I needed to log that for myself. And there's a certain aspect of that even as a guy that has worked out forever, right? Like it's just, this has been my life. I need that motivation, but it also is rewarding to me internally to say, look, I got up off my ass after working all week and I still went down and I did this. Yeah, there was a motivation to have to put that in and show Zach that I did it. But that's a huge component for me too.
Yeah. And, it happens, and that change is a funny thing, right? It happens so slow and so fast at the same time. It happens slow enough for us that we don't realize it's happening, but it's happening pretty fast in like the general time set. But in our head, it's happening such a slow time. But by the time we realize that the change has happened, we're a different person. Like, one of my clients, like, I've touched on him earlier, was, drinking, most days. He didn't have an issue or anything. He just did it to relax, right? And, he's pre-diabetic. He's 48, serious weight gain over the years and hadn't worked out in long years. And now he gets up every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning to go work out. And he can't wait to go. Like, who is that person? Like now in their first 6 weeks, they lost 23 pounds, just changing their lives, and like went from 272 to 248 so 24 problems, just a matter of 6-7 weeks. I think it was right at 43 days, 44 days. It's a whole mindset, right? It's great. Yeah, sure. 20 pounds. That's great. That's really good, right? Because he had health issues and he's still going through them. He's still improving it. But to hear excitement, like, you know, and it's funny, like it's hard to explain. Like, you know, I have so many touch points with a person on a daily basis that I can tell when something's off from a text. It sounds crazy, but I really can. Like if somebody's like not texting or not logging the food a certain way, like I can tell one client, like, hey man, what's going on? Like something seems off. And like, oh yeah, my dad actually got diagnosed with something, so I haven't been doing it. It sounds weird, but like that's how personable it gets, because I can just tell from like, you know, talking so much every day. And you can hear excitement through a text. I know it sounds stupid to say that. It sounds stupid for me to say it out loud, but you can tell, right? When somebody's excited, when they're like, you know, you see that message come across like 4 a.m. Like I can't wait to get to the gym. Like, you know, they're texting me that before they go to the gym, right? Like, yeah, that's genuine excitement. Like I can't like hear them say it, but I can feel it. I don't know how to explain it, but I can.
Yeah. Yeah, that excitement comes through. I mean, the other day I texted you or messaged you and I was like, dude, I both hate you and love you at the same time right now. Because this
that's common. That's very common. I have a friend I train and he's like, he messaged me yesterday because I changed up his program and he goes, I thought we were friends. And I said, yeah, we're the kind of friends that laugh at each other when we get hurt though.
Yeah, that's right. When you trip and fall over. But it's that personal approach because it's, you know, so often you would think that, all right, well, this is virtual programming. Zach's just going to throw, you know, 3 sets of 8 times this many exercises and all that. And it's just not the case. Like you're able to really train someone and then pick up on the changes. Like it's been funny because you've given me a bunch of new workouts that I haven't done and exercise. Like I said, I've been exercising forever. My degree's in exercise physiology. And still I'm like, dude, I can't believe I've never done this exercise. And so I've been playing like, okay, well, how much weight do I do for this many sets and all that? And then I'll get to the number of reps and you've been giving me a hard time because you're like, not a hard time, but you've been encouraging me saying, dude, I don't want to see you do 10, 10, 20. I want to see you do 10, 9, 17 because that means you got to failure, right? And so now every time I pick a weight, I'm like, damn it, I'm going to get all the way to 20. And so then I know I have to like put that in and you're going to give me, you know, but it's that personal touch and that personal programming that makes a big difference. But to your credit, that excitement, and for me, like I am working so hard. Like I joked with my wife who's training with your wife actually, which is really super cool. But I was like, what is this stuff on my forehead? This like drippy stuff. I don't understand what's happening to my body.
Yeah.
Because I'm sweating my ass off and I haven't been working hard enough to do that. And you're not even here. It's not like you're here encouraging me and pushing me that hard right here.
Yeah, but it's that discreet encouragement or that like that hidden thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, because I do think it's part of it, right? For that personal touch, you know, it's almost a friend-like approach, like, you know, or I don't want to disappoint. Like I want to do it this way. Or I want to prove that I can do this. And then it goes back to just what I talked about earlier about, you know, where you talk about culpability, like it adds to that, right? Like, hey, it's not only that I want to go and do it, like, but then it becomes a game within yourself with me involved in it, right? But at some point it's you versus you, and I'm just there to watch the game, right?
Yeah. And be the coach, which is what your role is, right? And coach me along. And what's the difference when you program someone? And honestly, I would guess, and in my experience, that a guy like me can be more of a pain in the ass to deal with than someone that is kind of new and doesn't really, you know, like doesn't really know or don't know what they don't know. You know, you get someone that's worked out, and I'm not this way, but I would assume that some of the people that are more experienced would be like, I don't want to do that. What does Zach know? You know, all that stuff versus someone that's new. Do you see a difference between those two types of people?
No, not. I haven't had anybody who really hasn't given me much grief over workouts. Unless it's just an injury thing, which I tell everybody, if you have a sharp pain, always stop. No, it's about the same actually. Like it's just different questions.
Yeah.
Like no matter what, when somebody starts off, no matter who they are, I get pinged with a bunch of questions, which I love.
Yeah.
But it's just different.
Yeah.
Different questions, different ways of approaching it. Like if somebody has more knowledge base and their questions are more specific, whereas somebody who is just starting out might be more of, wave top, right? More of like bigger picture, like what is the idea behind it? I have some people who, there's this one guy that I'm training now who he only wants to come on for 2 months, and like he was upfront with it, because he has a goal that he wants to achieve, and then he's going traveling, so he won't be able to continue, or at least that's what he says at this moment. And so with him, like he not only wants to learn, he wants to understand the science behind it. Like, hey, what's this? What is VO2 max? What is why is the fat percentages here? Or why is my nutrition my macros need to be this? And so I don't have many of those people who want to know all that, but he's one of them. So it does vary. His knowledge base is pretty high. So like yours, he probably has more specific questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I've got a torn bicep and I was like, hey, can we, this particular bicep workout is a little bit too heavy on pronate or supinated position. Can we do more pronated position and all that sciencey stuff? And
yeah, that's not coming up. That's not coming from somebody who just started working out, right?
Yeah, not usually. Not usually. It's like, hey, can we do more brachialis work right here on this? On these, right? So
that was the first. When I got that, I was like, oh, I haven't seen that before.
Well, because I'm dumb and didn't have my bicep fixed. But talk me through kind of the challenges between, what kind of challenges are people facing now? And kind of, and feel free to step back as much as you want in terms of our society right now. I think I was listening to somebody the other day saying something like 80%, they're expecting by 2030, 80% of Americans are going to be obese, which is just an unbelievable, and we're pushing 60% right now. What are the challenges that you are seeing that are causing people to get there? Right? What is this? Is just like a knowledge thing? Is it just like laziness? I mean, for lack of a better term, or?
That's a very open-ended question.
Yeah.
It's a variety. When you talk about the overweight and obese, it's generational too. You're seeing a lot in younger generation. I'm coming up on 43. My age group didn't see obesity as much in my youth as it is compared percentile now, and that can go a lot. There's factors in it, but the main factor would be, I didn't grow up with I had a Nintendo, and I think I was 11 years old when Nintendo came out, right? And even then, it wasn't something that gaming, you didn't do it. And I didn't have social media. I didn't have a cell phone or anything. And so that plays a part in the youth. But then it's just not the youth there. We're talking about people in their 20s that grew up with that, right? And people in their, early 30s grew up with that. And so some of that's just been part of their life. And some of the outdoor activity and things that was part of my youth was not something that was introduced to them. And then you add to the biggest layer, I think, is nutrition. And, it started, obviously, if you want to get really into it, started after World War II, right? When we had a problem with the food supply after the Depression and everything, and we wanted to be able to mass produce and stuff. And then we started doing processed foods, and then, it started coming up from there. With processed foods. And now it's more to a grand scheme, right? So it's a marketing thing as much as anything. So, again, we're going really deep, but what's organic, what's, free range chicken, we put labels on things, but if you go and look at what the definition of what that may or may not be, there's not it's not scrutinized as much as people may not think. And then, the avocado example, hey, it's healthy. Yeah, it is, right? It is a healthy thing. But if you eat a bunch of it, it's not healthy. And everybody can throw out the term hey, everything in moderation. Okay. That may be true, but if you do a whole bunch of stuff that's bad for you in moderation, that's not moderation.
That's not moderation, right?
No. But it's so simple. right? And then it's not easy to go in the grocery store and with the prices now, and you look at what's healthy, what's not, and being able to pick and choose, and it's not easy. It's not easy. And so for me, when I see a lot of people, my people eat out. A lot of people go for quick meals, and that's understandable. Fast-paced society, I call this, we're endorphin whores now, right?
Oh yeah.
Everything's fast-paced. Like, hey, like, again, going back to my youth, if I wanted to know, like, who was the first man to land on the moon, obviously my last name, I know who it is. But the point is like, back then, if I didn't know, I'd have to go find a dictionary or go find a book or go to the library, go to the catalog and find the thing. And now it's 2 seconds. Like, who was the first one? And you type it in and you got your answer, right?
You don't even have to type it. You just say it right here, right? In your wrist.
And we don't understand it, but that's the natural endorphin, right? That's the endorphin that you're hitting right there. That popping it. And it's like that. You go on TikTok, Instagram, and all that. It's just scroll and feed and just looking. Endorphin. You're hitting it. You're pinging it. And so we get used to that stuff too. And then so like working out, or seeing results, that's not always fast.
Yeah.
And so I think, you go through nutrition and then, how people grew up, like generationally, how it's changed. And then you add on to it those in how we are as a society with endorphins and wanting like instant fix, instant this. And like, I can't tell you how many times people are like, hey man, what kind of pill can I take? Or what kind of thing? That's not going to work, man. Like, hey, you can go do steroids. That's great. You can go do them. You still have to do work to get results to be Mr. Olympia, right? Even that is not a quick fix, or right? You still have to do things if you were going to do, like, me, I do 3 supplements. I do pre-workout, protein powder, and creatine. Those are 3 things I do. But if I just took those without themselves, like, they don't aid me in anything, right? That make me feel really wired when I do pre-workout and I'm just sitting on my couch or something. But those are the 3 things I think is like generational, how we've grown up has changed over time. Nutrition has a big factor now with processed foods, and just that plain understanding of what to eat, what not to. I see that's the biggest thing when I talk to people, or when people start inputting their food on my app, when they go on my app and they input the food and they start logging it daily, they quickly realize like, oh man, I didn't realize I was eating so bad. And they realize it fast. It's a very quick thing they realize. And then the last one is just like that natural, like, wanting a quick fix and natural endorphin. Like, we're so used to quick everything now. And then, like, if you've gotten yourself 20, 30 pounds overweight, that's not an instant fix. If you're going to do that in a healthy manner, 1% of body weight per, every 7 to 10 days is something you can lose. Now, you can go on fad diets and lose fast, but almost always you gain it back. So, those would be the 3 biggest things that I would say.
Yeah. And how do you, that endorphin thing's interesting because you have to go, when you're changing your lifestyle to a healthier lifestyle, there are still endorphins involved, but it's not the same. The mechanism. You always have to retrain your brain and your endocrinal system to do better, because then it's a more natural endorphin, right? Like, it's not that doom scrolling. It's like, all right, well, after I finish this set, I do get endorphins, I get epinephrine, I get all of these things, but then it's like, it's just a different kind of process.
It is. And I don't think we honestly realize like how bad we are. I don't, like, if you really wanted to see how bad you are, just go, all right, I'm going to put down my phone, my computer, and everything for a day. And then to see like how bad you're itching. It's like you're almost
like a heroin addict.
Like, I need to check my phone. Like, in reality, like, I do it too. I'm not, I set my phone down like, oh man, I wonder if somebody texted me, or if I need to check this, or I need to, and then it starts playing in your mind. Like, I got to, but you really don't, because whether you go check it in 10 minutes or I get that moment, it doesn't change a whole lot. Unless there's an emergency, but that's very few far in between, right?
Yeah. And I think for us, people like us that do our, business online, we do our business on our phones and all that, then that becomes an excuse.
Oh yeah. For me, it's hard. That intermixes in my personal life.
Yeah.
So all the time, it's hard.
Yeah, because you almost have to shut it off. I started doing this thing where the first 30 minutes a day, I stay off social media, I stay off email. And then for the last, and one of my checklist things at the end of the day is to do this digital detox at the end of the day.
I give that to every client.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and it's great. And we had already been kind of doing that. So it's not that hard for me to do, but like just shutting the phone off and putting it down. And we do some red light therapy and some different things. But it's like that first time of not wanting to reach out and grab your phone all day long is just, I mean, it's a huge challenge.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's real hard.
And then retraining your brain to have that, like when you run or do cardio or do HIIT or work out or any of these things, you get a natural endorphin hit, but it's like getting off of cocaine or heroin or methamphetamines or any of those kind of things. Cause it's like, it's a level 1, it's a level 2 instead of a level 1,000. Right.
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about drugs, that's what you're talking about. They're messing with your central nervous system and the endorphins in the brain, right? It's the same. It's the same.
Yeah.
We just don't view it the same.
We should. I think if we did, it would be a little bit easier. But
yeah,
for all of us, how do we? So if you got someone, we got a lot of people listening. Obviously, by just statistically, we've got 50% of the people listening to this podcast are going to be struggling with their weight, either really overweight, obese, or whatever. What's kind of, how do we encourage them to like shop better, eat better, start the workout process? Obviously get a coach is a huge one. And but like even just getting started, get off your couch, buy better food. How do you encourage people to do that?
I say, for one, like, I'll touch on something before I go into that is like, for me, I just talked about it on Instagram today, actually. And so for me, on social media posting was very hard because I think I went like almost 8-9 years without making a post. And then when I started this, I had to post daily now. It's kind of hard, just from a aspect of doing that. But it's your mindset. And so I said it today. And I said, you got to, dream it to believe it to achieve it. And I kind of came up with that on the spot when I did it that day. I'm sure somebody said it before me. It's been millions of years people have been alive. I'm sure somebody said that before me, but that was the original thought in my head. But I mean it because for me, like, I tell people it's very healthy at night to daydream. But daydreaming is so much more powerful than people think. Because if when you go and you sit down and you lay down at night before you go to sleep, or when you wake up in the morning, you spend 5-10 minutes of active thought. And, this goes more than just working out, but like, all right, in 6 months, I want to look like this. And you start picturing that in your mind like that. And it's hard to think, but you can go from, to the point of being, if it's in your head and you start thinking about it all the time, it's funny how you naturally start going in the direction of your beliefs and your thoughts. And you go, if I'm putting this in, this is an achievable goal, your mind will start shifting to like, hey, I can do this. I can make this. And once you start putting that power of belief in yourself in your head, that can't be taken away from you, because that power of belief in yourself is stronger than what other people can tell you. Because when you get that belief in yourself and you start going, hey, I can do this. So when you start putting that mindset, changing your mindset to those things, to me, that's the most important. Is shift. Once you shift your mind, you can go into making those goals achievable. And then after that, right, then it's just taking the steps. Taking those little steps that you need to take, like, hey, if you don't work out at home, getting a gym membership, and then, or getting a coach. I'm not trying to sell myself. I really am not, but just taking any steps that can help you, right? Like if you know you need that accountability at first, then get a coach, right? Or if you don't have the knowledge base, go get a coach. Like it's a small investment to a bigger, a better life. Like it's funny. Like you'll see people have no problem going and spending $200-$300 on a pair of shoes. But if you said, hey, your gym membership this year is going to be $300. Oh, that's too much.
That's too much.
Can't do that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, all right, man. Well, one, is, I'm using shoes as an example because $200 pair of shoes. One, you'll wear them 5-6 months, maybe. And then the other window, you can change your life. You can feel better mentally. You can look better physically. You can change the way you approach life. And it's funny how we can go, oh, $200, $300 on shoes is this, but $200, $300 for a gym membership. But why do we view it that way? It's strange how we view what we'll spend our money on. And, you can go get a coach, and, some coaches more or less than others, and people will be very, very hesitant to do that. Mm-hmm. But then, they'll go buy something that's, a perishable item. And, perishable items are great in the medium, but it goes back to that natural endorphin thing too, right? That quick endorphin thing. But, the other can shift your life. And I don't think people understand how powerful it is when you can shift some of your life and get that mental and physical difference in your life. It's something like, and I said it before because I mean it, is you cannot buy that.
Right.
It's earned.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so much better. It's always better when you earn something versus just buying it. It's great when you buy something, you feel something, but when you earn something, you can't replicate that.
Yeah.
Do anything.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and we, I've talked about it on the podcast, and I think there, guys that are our age, I'm older than you by 6 or 7 years, but it's like this, everybody gets a trophy mentality and all of this stuff that we've kind of done to these young people. And I think we're robbing them of that ability to earn something for themselves, because there's something different about earning what you have and earning the body that you want. And and I mean, you're like me. It's like, you can't bullshit somebody and say, look, this is going to be super easy. You're going to take this pill, you're going to do a couple of things once a week, and then 12 weeks later, you're going to have the body you want. No, it's work. It takes a lot of work, but the reward is there, not only from a daily basis, weekly basis, but then when you begin to hit those goals and see those changes and feel that tightness and all that, that's a huge component. But to your point, people are spending freaking $300 a month on Starbucks, and which are 1,100 calorie drinks with 140 grams of sugar in each one, and yet they won't spend that on a trainer or coach or whatever. It's nuts.
And that's a great example, right? So like $5 a day, you could put it in that aspect, right? I don't go to Starbucks, but I assume most things are $5 to $10 there a drink. To do the math, that's $150 to $300 a month.
Yeah.
If you just took that away and applied it to a gym membership or to a coach or, to better nutrition, like instead of buying that, you go buy healthier food. But we don't. Why? No. Why do we value that Starbucks in that nature, right? Like, hey, you can replicate that coffee at home. It might not taste the same, but it can taste pretty close. You cannot replicate that other thing without,
Yeah, that's it's just changing that mindset. And to your point, one of the things that people think is that, food prep and all that stuff is a huge problem. It takes so much time, and it's so much I literally yesterday, I had Michelle, my wife, she bought a bag of mahi at Costco, frozen mahi. I have rice at home. We picked up some fresh and frozen vegetables, but in 30 minutes, I had 6 meals. Right. It's just, it's not that hard. And so
I especially clients that eat out all the time when they first start, we go through this almost without fail. All right, hey, I want you to just do because I'm going to be honest, I'm super anal about my time and efficiency. I just am. That's who I am.
Me too. Me too. Yeah.
And so if you go, all right, think about it let's just do math. Okay. All right. If it takes you, you set a time on Sunday and it takes you an hour and a half, which, is realistic. If you can make, 15 meals, right? You can make 3 different types of meals. I make shrimp and grits for one meal. I make, chicken breast and broccoli for another meal. And then I make, some kind of breakfast food, some kind of, scrambled hash. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I make 5 of each, and now I have enough for my work week for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Right. All right. It took an hour and a half. Okay, dude. Let's just say you go get something to eat at McDonald's twice. All right, so you got to leave work, you drive there. Let's say it's close, it's 5 minutes away. You go there 5 minutes, you wait in line 5, 10, 15 minutes. You get your food, then you drive back to work. It's another 5, 10, 15 minutes. Like, let's say minimum 30 minutes. You do that twice. That could have been the same amount of time in 2 days that it took you to prep. And that's not including all the meals. We're talking about two
meals.
This is simple math. Just look at it from a math standpoint, time. You look at your time. You're actually more efficient in meal prepping. It's just that in our heads, like, oh, I got to set aside to do this time for an hour and a half. Hey, man, there's quick ways now. I go through this with clients. And pressure cooker, right? Get yourself a pressure cooker. You can have frozen chicken and have it ready in 10, 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. Get an air fryer. You can actually make some pretty tasty stuff pretty quickly in an air fryer. And the prep is 5 minutes, and then you put it in there and you let it do it itself, and you come back and then you put it in Tupperware. And now you're ready. And then I have other things like, if you really want to be quick, go to Costco, buy 3 rotisserie chickens, debone them, put them in 10, 15 different pieces of Tupperware, buy some beans, get them out of a can of beans, put them in the other part of the container, and then get like quinoa salad from Costco, or quinoa salad. Boom, put it in there. Now you spent $27, $30 at Costco, and you just made yourself 10 to 15 meals. You just spent $3 a meal, and you just meal prepped in 15 minutes. I've done that before. Yeah. And, when I'm loaded on time, like, hey, that's not only was that efficient, it was time saving and money saving as well.
Yeah. Costco rotisserie chicken is the cheapest protein source other than, eggs used to be cheaper. I think rotisserie chicken is probably cheaper than eggs gram for gram now, but it's like, we buy 2 or 3 every time we go, just cause it's just easy.
Yeah. It's easy. And, I wouldn't recommend doing it all the time. It's got sodium and stuff in it. Because they obviously, do it a certain way to make it taste good, but it's quick and easy and fast, and it's not the worst thing. It's in the realm of like, hey, this is acceptable type stuff.
Yeah, and it's just not that hard. I mean, like you said, you get your Instant Pot, pressure cooker. We have a rice cooker if we want to do some brown rice or long grain rice, and literally it takes 3 minutes and hit the start button and it's done. It does it. Yeah, it takes no time. I think that's part of that endorphin, right? Yeah. Like you don't, but it's just, you don't get that hit from that absolute, because occasionally we'll eat McDonald's. I haven't had McDonald's in a while, but like that lizard brain will be like, I bet that would taste really good. And then after I get it, I'm like, this is why I don't eat McDonald's, because it tastes horrible. It tastes terrible and it makes you feel like crap.
It's the filling part, right? Like 2 hours later, man, it's like, whoa.
Yeah. And then once you start eating clean, do you hear this from your clients? Like, hey, I've been eating clean for 2 weeks and I feel so much better.
Two things happen every single time. Oh man, I can't believe how much better I feel and how much better I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
Almost, both hand in hand. Because, our indigestion and stuff wreaks havoc on more things than just like, how we look. It also wreaks havoc on like how we feel and sleep. Like, how many times have you rolled around in bed feeling uncomfortable, right? And then once you start working out and eating right, like your body just starts like going to a natural, being able to lay down and go to sleep and sleeping through the night because you've worked your body out and you've eaten that, good, right? It's huge what it does to my mentally and physically. I can't even like try to oversell that aspect of changing your life. Is like the mental and physical aspects and how many touch points it is in your life, from how you feel, how you sleep, how you act. It bleeds into everything.
Yeah, that's kind of
I'm a better person, right? Because I'm a happier person.
Yeah,
and it's not because like I was born this way or like trial and error through anything in life, but the better I feel about myself, the natural more positivity that I put out without even trying, it just ekes out of anybody who's doing that.
Yeah, and that's not just a physicality standpoint. That's, like you said before, it's mentally, emotional, spiritual, physical, all of those things fit together. And to be able to have that, and because a lot of times they're like, well, if I look like Jack and had his 8-pack and all that stuff, I'd feel better about myself. Right? Obviously you've put the work in to get there. But it's like, I can feel better about myself because I'm doing the work. And like a lot of times, like if I'm a little heavier or like, carry a pair of dumbbells up a set of stairs, right, that are 50 pounds. And I think to myself, which I don't do that often, but anything heavy, as an example. And I'm like, there are people walking around with more fat on their body than I am carrying up these stairs right now. Do they know how bad this feels? Like I always wonder that. Or if I have a week where I've traveled and I've just eat like crap because I'm just lazy or whatever. I'm like, is this what people feel like all the time?
Yeah. And so you touched on the subject that, I deal with clients too. And, I deal with through talking with people too, not just clients, but how many people out there have knee and lower back problems and stuff from carrying extra weight? A lot, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't just make you feel better, worse mentally, from a physical standpoint, just from not just feeling bad. We're talking about like actual like aches and pains now from like knee, joint, back pains, because your body's not meant to carry, that much excess weight. Some of us are built differently. I tell people that all the time too when we start off. I'm very realistic. Like, hey, dude, you're built like this, or hey, if I'm working with a woman, you're built like this, because everybody has an without fail. Women are worse than men about this, but whatever they are built like, they want to be the exact opposite for whatever reason. I don't know. Like, I got an athletic woman who's just naturally like going to have more muscle tone, muscular legs. What does she want to be? As skinny as can be. Like, hey, that's probably not going to happen for you. I'm just being honest with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just funny how people will do that. But that pain that you actually cause on your body with the knees, the joints, and all that, like it's significant. Like if you're 5'9", 5'10", 6 foot person and you're carrying excess of 100 pounds, think about that every step you take. 100 pounds, right?
Yeah.
You're putting on those joints that shouldn't be there, and that adds up fast. That's another thing. Do the math. 100 pounds overweight each step. 100 pounds.
Yeah. That's and I think for the most part, people don't. It has been, when you get to that point, it's been so long since you have felt normal that you don't even you kind of like, oh well, I don't feel that great. But I don't think most people realize what it would be like to get back healthier, drop the weight, get some muscle mass back again.
Yeah, so it's daunting for people, right? Oh man, that's not achievable. Or they'll look at, like you said, hey, they look at, someone that's built like her in the current shape I'm in and go, oh, I'll never be like that. You may not be. I can't answer that. What I can tell you is that you can be better. You can start. Mm-hmm. You can start. Like, I can't tell you how many people that have come in and within 4 to 6 weeks have lost 20, 30 pounds. And I'm not starving them.
No,
I'm not doing like that's depending on their weight, so the guy who started off with 272 pounds, I started him out at 3,100 calories a day. And then we went down. Right.
Yeah.
So it's a sustainable lifestyle. It is something that like, hey, it's not a fad. Like we're just shifting the way you're actually supposed to do it. And when you start that shift, it comes off fast, and it's not even, it's amazing. And then another thing is as we age, we start losing, bone density in our muscles. It's just a natural progression of how we're built as humans. Well, if you're not working out, like physical shape, strength training, then you're just aiding in your aging, right? And we're definitely against aging in our country and as our generation. Our generation's that part.
Yeah.
That's part of our generation. We don't want to get old. Nobody wants to get old, but our generation is taking it to a whole different level. But you have to do that, right? And like I tell a lot of the people who come in from like doing this heavy cardio standpoint, like, hey, we're actually not going to do any cardio. Like, what? yeah, we're not going to do cardio. And if we do cardio, it's going to be very light, and it's going to be very, very pointed. It's going to be for a very exact reason, and it's going to be very like time stamped on it. And they're like, well, how am I going to lose fat or weight? And it's like they don't believe me. But then when we do it and they lose it, like I had this guy who's like, we're not doing any cardio. No. Like, well, how am I going to lose weight? Just watch. And in 6 weeks, he went from like 238 to 222. He's a 6'2", so he's not a small man. So that weight was pretty significant, and it was like with almost no cardio. How's that happening? Well, you're paying attention to what you're eating and you're working out, and you burn more fat when you work out from percentage wise than you do with cardio. A lot of times with cardio, people get misconceptions of that's how you lose fat. It's not. You just burn calories. Calories are calories. But what you do when you run is you burn a higher percentage of carbohydrates than fat, because our energy comes from two sources alone, right? Fat or carbs. when we work out, we expend more fat when we're doing strength training than we do carbs from our energy sources. And it's the opposite with cardio. You expend more carbohydrates than you do energy, fat. So anybody who went on a long run knows what I'm about to say is like when you're done, like an hour later, you're like, oh my God, I'm starving. Right. And there's a reason for that is because you're not using the storage, your fat storage for the energy source. You're using the carbohydrates that you have consumed. And what do you want to do? Your body does a natural reaction. It wants to replenish it. So that's why it's very hard if you do like long cardio not to want to eat.
Yeah. Yeah. The fattest we've ever been, Michelle and I both, were when we were training. We did a bunch of half marathons with, 13.1 miles and a couple of marathons. Right. So we're running for 2+ hours a day as you get through that training, and like, great, we're fatter than we were when we started because of that.
It's crazy.
Yeah, very thing. And dude, I used to watch 2 movies because we're in Montana. I'd watch 2 movies on the treadmill while I was doing my marathon training. And then you're just like, all right, well, and then I'll go overeat at the end of that, right?
Every time. You can't help it. Like, because that's like you're almost starvation level at that point because of how much the carbohydrates you depleted from your body. And it's a natural reaction to want to eat. And then you eat so fast because you're starving. Your body takes 20 minutes to, say it's full. So
and part of your brain is telling you, hey, I just worked my ass off. You almost give yourself permission to overeat. Right.
Yeah.
And that's just, So cardio, and I'm just because we're from, we're from the same generation. Our generation was the Susan Powter and Tony Little and all these guys that were on TV that were all telling us to do all this cardio, right? It's so
I hadn't thought about Tony Little in years, man. With his little mullet.
His mullet and that whatever that kick thing is that he used to do. Yeah. So, and it's funny that you say about body type and what you want. Michelle and I have struggled with this with her forever. Right. Because she's the same age as me, 50 years old. I'm 51, but that same generation of women that had this, skinny supermodel and all that. So like in her mind, that's the goal. Yeah. Kate Moss, that's the goal. Right. But for her, she naturally builds muscle quickly, both upper and lower body. So she and I were working out this morning and I'm like, dude, your chest and shoulders and back are amazing, right? Like she's carrying more fat than she wants to right now. Her legs are the same way. And she's finally, because she's getting close to that menopause age, she's finally recognizing that I need this muscle mass to continue for the rest of my life. And I'm going to embrace the mass.
Yeah.
Right.
So the muscle will help a lot. And then it's hard to like make somebody feel good about what their perception is. Like I did this with an in-person client actually like a month and a half ago. Like they were complaining about something and then I went and stood. I got her and stood in front of the mirror and I said, what do you see?
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, I see this fat here. I see this. I see this. I see this. And I said, okay, this is what I see. And then like, hey, I see a woman that is like got, an hourglass figure. I see a woman who has a nice, shaped legs and rear end, right? I see someone who's got like structurally sound shoulders. This is what I'm seeing, like what I find is sexually attractive, right?
Yep.
What you're seeing is a total different concept of yourself in the mirror. Why? Well, it's because of your reality and what, we've seen as like the Kate Moss, effect of like, that's what we perceived as beauty in the early 90s, late 90s. And it's changed through progression of time. But it's funny how that stuff sticks. It sticks and it's hard to get it out of your head of like, that's what I'm supposed to look like.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
Yeah. And I think women are probably more guilty of it.
They're way more guilty than men.
Way more guilty of it than we are. But at the same time, what's funny is I think a lot of men to their detriment see it the other way. It's like I always joke and say, whoever came up with that study that women prefer dad bods all had dad bods. Like that was so because it's unhealthy. We know that it's not healthy for you and that visceral fat and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's definitely.
The women that it's always like, oh, like look at Leonardo DiCaprio dad bod. Like women love it. Yeah. then the fact that he's a multi-millionaire and like a movie star, I'm sure that has something to do with it as well.
Yeah, you definitely see a lot.
I'm sure if he's regular Joe Blow, he would have,
yeah, if you're poor and ugly or and you have less, your situation is different than you're rich and ugly and fat, right?
I mean, like, let's be honest, like that dad bod's going to work for a couple of people more than it will for others, but it's not because of the bod.
Yeah, 100%. Well, dude, this has been awesome. Before we get off of the call or the podcast, I want to get kind of what are you thinking? Because we're basically going to do kind of a before and after thing with me over the next 12 whatever weeks. What are you kind of thinking for my plan? Like, how are you approaching it in terms of like what I can expect and what people listening along can say, hey, well, this has been his journey and all that.
So, I mean, I approach you no differently than I approach any other person. I approach you the same thing. You tell me your initial goals, and it doesn't matter. I have everybody who will have their initial goals, and it doesn't matter. Almost everybody at some point along the way, whether it's 2 weeks in or 6 weeks in, the goals change. Mm-hmm. And it might not be like they change from like, oh, I want to be like, let's just, I'm not going to use your weight or anything example, but let's say somebody was 200 pounds. They're like, all right, I want to be 190 pounds in 6 months. Well, they start getting there really quick. And then all their goals like, oh, no, you know what? I want to be like 170 and bench this much. Like people have different goals, but this could be, realistic. So I approach you the same way. Like you have your initial goals. Yours is centered around body composition more than anything else, right? And I actually think that's more important than the scale. I would tell anybody that's out there listening, hey, your body composition is way more important than the scale, because I can be 200 pounds and look one way, and I can be 200 pounds and look a whole lot different, right? So there's different ways. The scale is not a very good indication.
And I could be 200 pounds this morning, and I could probably be 208 or 209 by the end of the day, and vice versa if I want to, right?
Water weight easily.
Yeah.
But yours is centered mostly around body composition right now, right? You have a certain goal in mind of where you want to be body composition-wise. Yours is like body fat percentage is what you want. And so what my goal is with you, and I'll approach it just the same way as anybody else. Like, hey, we set our initial, I'll call them boundaries, right? Like, hey, we put this many, your caloric intake is this. We have your workouts is this. And then, we monitor it. And then 2 weeks from now, depending like, hey, your trajectory here, left, right, overall center, like, all right, then we'll shift it and we'll change it. But I shift everything based off the client's goals. Always. If their goals shift, cool. Then we're going to shift the way we're approaching it. But your goals right now in mind, I think what I initially laid out will work. But that doesn't mean it will. I don't physically know your body.
Right.
You could start eating something, or like this caloric intake could have been too much, or it could be too little. You could start losing weight rapidly or gaining weight, and then we change it. So just like you, I take the approach with every single client. We set our initial goals. We set, based off those goals, a plan. And then that plan will be updated as we go along continuously based off your goals changing and or if we're on the trajectory to hit those goals at the desired time frame. Realistic goals.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
That's a very important thing to put, is realistic, because I haven't had anybody come in with unrealistic goals. But, there are people that I've gotten on the phone with like, oh, yeah, I want to look like this and this. Okay. Then that's a year. Or that's 6 months, got to be realistic. Because if you tell, and I don't like that too. Like, there's a lot of people, and I don't try to talk bad about any other person. But there's a lot of people out in this, I'll call it this space, the personal training space, that like promise like, oh, you can eat this or this, you can do all this. Like, there's not a lot of truth. There's a lot of non-truths out there. Oh, and I think, I forget which guy it is, the V-Shred guy, right? Like, oh, you can eat pizza, you can do all this. Yeah, you can. You can probably eat that slice of pizza, and that might be like one of your 2 meals that day if as long as you stay under 1,500. If you eat 1,600 calories, sure, yeah, you can eat the pizza, but you got to still stay 1,600 calories under that day to get your goals.
Yep.
1,600 calories are pretty light, but you get my point, right? He's not selling that, hey, he's still operating at a caloric deficiency. He's trying to sell that, hey, I'm eating pizza. Yeah. Cool. That's a great marketing tool, but it's not very realistic. It's not, it's not, there's hidden truth, right? He's omitting things.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do that. To me, it's very important to be genuine upfront and like, hey, realistic goals. And the most important thing to me is giving people things that are sustainable. If you can do something and you start changing your lifestyle, and I give them tools to be sustainable, then they're going to do what they're supposed to do. And I've had success with every single client, and I've yet to have one client leave yet. And and that's because I think I do that, because I'm genuine, I'm upfront, and I'm realistic with them.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine, and this dude has gained and lost at least 35 pounds since I've known him. And he's one of these guys that likes to post on Facebook every 6 months or whatever. This is my new thing that I'm doing to, take control of my health and all that. I'm like, so now his new thing is like, I'm going to eat 600 calories a day for this many weeks or whatever. I'm like, good luck getting fatter. It's like, I ask him, I'm like, are you lifting weights? No. Well, because you can't lift a can of soup because you're eating 600 calories a day and you're just going to keep getting fatter. And like, anyway.
Yeah. So we all know those people though, right?
Yeah. We all
what's
do.
The new trend of diet? That's what they're going to do. And then they're going to lose the weight, and then they're going to gain it back, and then they're going to go back. And they, like, just if you get a lifestyle that's sustainable and that's decent and, doesn't require those crashes or fads, then you'll do it. Like, I think, what is it? The strong 75 or
75 hard. Yeah.
There's a reason it's for 75 days. Why? Because it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to lose those weight in 75 days, and maybe you can change a little bit of your lifestyle with some of their inputs. Like, I do think some of their ideology is good, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
That's why it's called hard 75, right? Like, you don't do hard 75 24/7. You do it for 75 days. Yeah. And that's no different than a crash diet. That's no different than some of these like half truths that people say.
Yeah, because my goal is like, I want to, I think I was at 204 when I started. I don't mind giving my numbers. I'm at 204 when I started. I think what we were shooting for 7 or 8%, something like that, is kind of our initial goal, and we'll see how that goes. And I think that got us like 187. I think that was the number we're kind of shooting for. But it's funny because I'm lifting. I did heavy legs yesterday. And first of all, don't tell your trainer that you have a hard time growing your legs, because then what will he do? He'll make you do freaking legs until you can't walk anymore. So, which I really appreciate. But I'm thinking to myself, look, I don't know if 187 is going to be the number to get to that body fat percentage, because I'm fully thinking that I may gain a couple of pounds of muscle in the next 12 weeks. And so, but it's that mentality, right? Like I've learned enough over time to think, hey, that number may shift. Like 187 may not be the number. Could be 185, could be 192, whatever that number is. But like, that's that sustainable. Cause I want to get to a point where if I want to maintain, like we talked about, I think 9 or 10 is like, all right, you can do it, but it still requires a decent amount of effort in order to kind of maintain that leanness. And, there's a component for me from a marketing perspective, like there is for you, to stay lean and just because people want to see lean trainers, right? Like that's and coaches and people that are in the fitness space and those kind of things. So, but all that to say, it's a lifestyle thing that I think that you're helping me you're adding on to my tool arsenal on the things that I thought I knew. I won't even say already know. I'll say I thought I knew. And I'm super excited about being able to take these next steps and see how it goes. And like I said, I'm committed. I'm going to work my ass off along the way.
Yep. I'm looking forward to it. And like, people can, when I talked about earlier saying, hey, I can hear the excitement in text, like just how you sound excited there. Like you are naturally excited. It's the same things I hear from every single person. Yeah. Why? Because they're not just, they're earning it, right? They're earning it and they know it.
Yep. I earn it. Because of our podcast, I did all my chest workout this morning. I go back and do my abs this afternoon, which I'm committed to, and I'm going to get those things done. And eat what I need to eat and all that. But so what I want to do is I want to tell us how we find you. I want to do that. But if there's anybody listening to this, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this episode in the schedule. So if you're listening to this now and you want to kind of join me on this journey, I want you to reach out to Zach, see if it's a good fit. It may not be a good fit. Not everybody's a good fit for everybody. Reach out to Zach and then join me kind of along this journey on taking control of your health and fitness and lifestyle and all of those things. So Zach, how do we find you? How do we reach out to you?
myempowermentfitness.com is my website, and then on IG, My Empowerment Fitness. And then on TikTok, on My Empowerment Fitness. So kind of easy, My Empowerment Fitness. And like you can, anybody watching Empowerment Fitness, I have shirts, t-shirt, and hats. But those are the easiest ways. Is IG, is My Empowerment Fitness, or go to my website, myempowermentfitness.com. And then you can there's a contact functionality on each. So those are the easiest ways. Cool.
And he's posting every day, so you guys can follow him and see what's going on there. And man, I'm excited about this. So we'll see. I gotta go do the work.
Yeah, man. Let's get to it.
All right, brother. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.
If you're looking to really maximize your life and become the man you were made to be, head over to maxedoutman.com and get your journey started today.